My name is Joanna. At 28, I found myself seated across from my parents at their endless mahogany table, the chandelier scattering light across polished china. This was their world, elegant, rigid, orchestrated to gleam. My mother, Marjorie, refilled my glass, while my father, Alden, slid a heavy envelope toward me. "Joanna," he said, voice smooth, rehearsed. "This is for your future, for all of ours." I steadied my hands in my lap. The envelope sat like a dare between us. My mother's smile was sweet, almost indulgent. "It's just paperwork. One family, one destiny." I opened it. The first page was enough. Every asset, every account, every property I'd built was to be placed in a trust, theirs to manage without question. My father nudged a pen across the table. "This way, we move forward together. No more risks, no more silos." Something inside me twisted. They weren't asking, they were demanding everything I had built from the ground up. I lifted my eyes slowly, saw the flicker of triumph in theirs, the quiet expectation that duty, or guilt, would make me fold. Instead, I smiled. Calm. Controlled. "If you've ever been betrayed by those who should have stood by you, tell me where you're watching from." For the first time that night, their confidence cracked. My mother's fingers tightened on her glass, my father's jaw clenched. That's when the butler stepped into the room. His tone was formal, but tense. "Ma'am, your lawyer has arrived." I leaned back in my chair, heart steady. The real battle was about to begin. Helena's heels clicked against the floor as she entered. The air shifted. My parents' eyes sharpened, but I stayed still, anchored. Before she even spoke, memory dragged me back to the years that carried me to this moment. In my early 20s, Portland was changing, neighborhoods flipping overnight. Where others saw decline, I saw possibility. While friends spent weekends in bars, I scraped old linoleum, painted cabinets, rebuilt kitchens most people wouldn't glance at twice. My hands blistered. My back ached. Still, I reinvested every dollar, flipping one house into the down payment for another. At 25, I signed the papers for my first Craftsman duplex. Holding those keys felt like proof that discipline mattered more than pedigree. When I showed my parents, they laughed. "You just got lucky with the market," my mother said. "Without us, you wouldn't last," my father added. Their dismissal hurt, but not as much as the memory of college, when I begged them to co-sign my student loan and they refused. "It'll teach you responsibility," they said. And it did. I worked double shifts, skipped meals, lived in a damp basement with mold on the walls. Their refusal scarred me, but it also hardened me. By 28, my duplex had grown into 5 properties. I'd learned how to negotiate, how to stare down contractors who underestimated me, how to read the market before it shifted. Every decision was mine alone. My parents had done nothing. Yet they acted as though my success somehow belonged to them. Sitting at their dining table now, contract heavy in my hands, I realized their neglect had given me the very independence they despised. And that independence was what they were determined to erase. This contract wasn't born overnight. For years, they'd been softening the ground with little digs disguised as wisdom. Merge finances, it's only practical. Family must stick together. After all we've sacrificed, don't we deserve security too? At first, I brushed it off as clumsy attempts to stay relevant. But their words always left a sting. One afternoon, I came home early and found my father in my apartment, rifling through the drawer where I kept property deeds. The locks were new. The lease had only my name. He froze when he saw me, then smiled stiffly. "Just curious," he said, as though curiosity gave him permission to invade my life. I laughed it off then. Told myself he was old-fashioned. But deep down, I knew. That wasn't love, it was entitlement. And by the time the contract landed on their dinner table, that whisper had grown too loud to ignore. Helena entered like a blade through silk. She set her briefcase on the table, eyes sharp, unshaken. I hear there's a contract my client is expected to sign. Marjorie's smile wavered. This is a family matter. No need for lawyers. Helena ignored her, flipping through the pages. Her brow arched higher with each sheet until she snapped the folder shut. This isn't a trust, she said evenly. It's a complete transfer of control. If Joanna signed, she'd lose every right to her own assets. Silence fell. My father recovered first, his tone calm but jaw tense. It's about trust, Helena. About protecting our family from risk. Funny, Helena replied. Because what I see is a daughter stripped of every dollar and decision. If this were about trust, why is she the only one giving something up? My mother leaned in, her voice syrupy. You know us, Joanna. We'd never hurt you. This is just a formality. I folded my hands in my lap, the papers resting between us like a loaded weapon. Their eyes pressed against me, willing me to bend. Instead, I said quietly. We're finished here. For the first time in my life, I saw something foreign on their faces. Not authority. Not certainty. But fear. My father's stare sharpened, the calm mask cracking just enough to show the storm beneath. Without us, he said coldly, you'll lose everything. I straightened in my chair, my breath steadying. The irony almost made me laugh. They had given me nothing, yet here they were, threatening to strip it all away. Helena's hand rested on my shoulder, grounding me. It was a reminder, this wasn't over. And in that moment, I understood, I couldn't just protect what I'd built. I had to uncover the depth of their desperation. That dinner told me all I needed to know, talking wouldn't change anything. They weren't offering compromise, they were tightening the noose. So the very next morning, I hired a private investigator. His name was Grant Mercer. His reputation? Digging up truths people would rather bury forever. Within a week, he handed Helena a thick file. Together, we combed through it page by page. And with every turn, their carefully curated image unraveled. The Rhode Island estate they had dangled like bait? Mortgaged to the brink. Every antique chair, every glittering gala, every show of wealth, they were smoke and mirrors. Years of reckless spending held together by shaky loans. But the sharpest cut came near the end of the file, a credit line application in my name. The signature was forged, too precise to be careless, too familiar to be anyone but them. Someone who had studied me signing contracts 1,000 times. My vision blurred. Anger and disbelief clawed at me. I remembered being a child, holding a little passbook savings account my father insisted would teach me responsibility. Back then, I believed him. But staring at the forged document now, the truth was clear. They hadn't been teaching me responsibility, they'd been teaching themselves access. Helena's voice pulled me back. This isn't just manipulation, Joanna. This is fraud. It's criminal. The words settled like lead. Betrayal pressed heavier than the paper in my hands. These were the people who raised me, who preached sacrifice, who claimed to know best, and now they were stealing my identity along with my money. I unclenched my fists, forcing calm. If they had already crossed this line, what else were they capable of? That night, the forged credit line gnawed at me. It wasn't just the act, it was the pattern it revealed. Memories resurfaced in a new light. When I was 10, begging for piano lessons, they refused. You need discipline, not indulgence. When I asked for help with college applications, they waved me off. You should learn independence. And when I pleaded for a cosign on my first loan, they declined again. Tough love, they called it. For years, I wore those rejections like armor, proof that I had survived without them. But now? I saw the truth. Those moments weren't lessons in independence. They were rehearsals, conditioning me to accept neglect, to confuse abandonment with love. The realization made me sick. Still, guilt whispered in my ear. They gave you food, a home, clothes. Isn't that enough? Aren't you being ungrateful? I confessed this to Helena once, my voice cracking. She leaned forward, her gaze steady. Protecting yourself isn't betrayal, Joanna. Betrayal already happened to you. Don't confuse survival with selfishness. Her words sank in like stone, unshakable. Something inside me shifted. I wasn't their obedient daughter anymore. I wasn't someone who would fold under guilt. By the time I left her office that evening, I knew. They had rewritten my childhood into a story of sacrifice and obedience. Now it was my turn to rewrite the ending. Helena moved fast. She brought in Drayton, a forensic accountant with a knack for chasing money through shadows. Days later, he uncovered what I'd suspected all along, a secret offshore account in my parents' names. Statements revealed a labyrinth of shell companies, stacked loans, debts rolling like dice on a crooked table. Their empire was already crumbling. And I was the lifeline they were counting on. Helena's office became our war room. Fraud. Forgery. Coercion. Every page in the growing file was another nail in the coffin of their performance as selfless benefactors. But facts alone wouldn't break them, they thrived on narrative, on turning guilt into currency. So I added something they couldn't dismiss as technical, memory turned into proof. My grandmother's locket. My grandfather's cufflinks. Both had vanished from the family safe years ago. They told me they were being appraised. I believed them until Helena tracked down pawn shop receipts. They had sold our heirlooms for quick cash. Not just theft of my adulthood. Theft of legacy. Looking at the evidence, I didn't feel triumph, just clarity. Their tower of lies was already swaying. All I had to do was give it a push. And there was only one place to do it, back at their own dinner table. The invitation came in the usual gilded envelope. They expected me alone. But I arrived with Helena. The table sparkled with silver and crystal, but the air was thick, heavy, like the charged stillness before a storm. Alden's tone was commanding. "We trust you've reconsidered," he said, motioning to the seat across from him. Marjorie smiled, brittle but confident. I sat. But I didn't open the folder they had waiting. Helena placed our file in the center instead and flipped it open with deliberate calm. Offshore accounts. Forged signatures. Pawned heirlooms. Debts stacked high enough to topple everything. The color drained from my mother's cheeks. Her voice wavered. "Joanna, this isn't what it looks like. We only wanted to protect the family. To protect you." My father reacted differently, his fist slammed the armrest, silverware rattling. "This is betrayal. After all we've done, you side with outsiders against us?" I met his fury without flinching. "Family doesn't mean ownership. I'm not your bailout fund. I won't pay for debts you created." Marjorie's pleas dissolved into tears. Alden's glare could have cut glass. But neither had time to recover. Sirens wailed outside, red and blue flooding the tall windows. Helena closed the file, calm as ever. Footsteps echoed down the hall, followed by a knock, sharp, final. When the officers entered, I watched my parents' faces collapse under the weight of exposure. And I knew there was no going back. The weeks that followed unraveled fast. News spread. The Rhode Island estate was swallowed by foreclosure. Creditors circled like vultures, tearing away the remains of their illusion. I didn't watch with joy. I watched with clarity. Their downfall wasn't mine to grieve. It was theirs to carry. Meanwhile, I fortified my own life. Deeds locked in a fireproof safe. Passwords changed. Accounts secured. No more cracks left open. For the first time, my future was truly mine, free of their grip. One evening, I met Helena at a quiet wine bar. No files, no contracts, just 2 glasses between us. She raised hers, a small smile on her lips. To freedom, hard-earned. Our glasses touched with a crisp note. To freedom, I echoed, the words sinking deep. Blood ties had once chained me. But freedom was the inheritance I chose. And I intended to protect it with everything I had.